Welcome to Santa Barbara Talks with Josh Molina. It's such a pleasure today to be here with Santa Barbara City Council member Alejandra Gutierrez, who is one of my original video guests. Might have been the first one, actually, now that I think about it. And it's really cool to be able to talk to you today, Alejandra. You are somebody very involved on the East Side, very involved in civic affairs, and elected to the city council. And so you have all of these important roles and responsibilities. And I'm really excited to talk to you today because we're going to talk about a really intriguing city council meeting from last week to kick things off. But first, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. It's been a while, and it's such an honor to be here with you and chatting. You are somebody really important in our community. A lot of people listen to you. That's how they get their news of what's going on in the city and in government. So thank you for having me.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. And thank you. And, Mutual Admiration Society is, you're bold, you say what's on your mind, and you don't do a lot of that. Like, oh, let me say this because it's going to help me later down the road stuff. You say what you mean in the moment. And so I want to talk to you about the council meeting first, and then we'll check in on your whole, everything that you got going on. But last week, there was a meeting on the outdoor dining fees. It was originally scheduled for Tuesday, but we had that storm, and so it was pushed back to Thursday. And in short, it was a proposal to create an outdoor dining fee, and there were various options. And it looked like the council was going to wait, postpone the meeting. And one of the reasons was because there was that storm and it was pushed to a Thursday, and there weren't a lot of restaurant owners in the room. And so they thought, hey, we need to have a full, robust discussion. Council member Megan Harmon said, let's delay the meeting. Oscar Gutierrez agreed with her and said, let's delay the meeting. There were a couple of votes. They were deadlocked because everybody's kind of all over the place on the actual fee. And then you just kind of said, can I talk for a moment? And you talk, and you just sort of laid everybody out. You're like, look, and I'm going to let you say it. But in short, watching it as a reporter, I thought this is leadership. This is somebody who wants to take a stand and is basically thinking, let's cut through all the nonsense and let's just take some action because that's why we're here. So talk to me about what you did on Thursday.
So basically what I did was bringing back the group to why we were there in the first place. We were there to make a decision. And I think what really triggered it is that the night before, we were going through these emergency alerts. And we were elected to take stands and to make difficult decisions in difficult moments. And if we can't do that, we're going to lose the trust of the people. And something that I get told over and over, and it does break my heart because I'm in leadership, is the distress. But there's a gap between the community members and the council because there isn't trust. They don't trust that we will follow through. People think that, we're always pushing things aside because we don't want to make those difficult decisions. And not only just the people in the community, but staff as well. We assign staff to do something on top of all of the responsibilities they have. And then we come back and they have done their job. And then we say, oh, we want to postpone it. So it's also a level of disrespect for staff that are doing their very best to get answers. And our job is to actually make the decisions. So if we have the community that we put on pause to make these decisions, our responsibility is to move forward. And if we're not ready, then that's fine. We're going to come back and we can discuss about that. But the conversation was moving into opening or closing State Street. And you can tell that certain council members were also a little worried because they did want to hear more about the business owners. But like I said, we did receive phone calls and emails. And what really did it to me was we don't have a lot of business owners in the room. And I'm thinking, how many times have we made decisions for other populations of the community and they have not been present? How many times have we made decisions for families, for children, for young adults, you know, the lower middle class that always gets, you know, is always struggling, and they're not in the room.
Yeah.
So if that was really the case, one, we would work on communication, the outreach of each, you know, city council meeting. We would do things differently. And so that's when I took my stand and I said, no, we're not going to do this. We're not going to do this dancing around. We have to make a decision. That is our responsibility.
Yeah, and exactly. And by way of context, that was not the first time that issue had come up. It has been at the council before. It was actually delayed to this week, last week. And so everyone sort of knew. And it seemed as though there was this incredible deference to the restaurant owners, which is what Randy is always talking about. Mayor Rouse is saying we're making a lot of decisions for one entity in town and not thinking about others. And so the idea of waiting would be just more time for things to be status quo. And I wanted to ask you too about Rebecca Bjork, city administrator, because she also chimed in and showed some leadership as, you know, the top staffer, and said, we have a choice to make. We can either implement these fees, or we can cut services, or we can raise parking rates. And again, leadership is easy when you're trying to pretend like you want people to feel good, but leadership is much more difficult when you have to upset people. But that's what leadership is. What did you think of Rebecca Bjork's comments? And they were pretty much what you were saying, just from a staff level. What did you think of that?
I think it's important that, sorry, that's my clock, that the community also hears staff points of view, the staff point of view, because we sometimes as council members, we think of ideas and we think, oh, this is great, let's push it forward. But staff really comes with a lot of knowledge. I mean, they, especially Rebecca, she's been working for the city for such a long time. But when she said those comments, I thought to myself, we really need to make a decision about how State Street's going to look. If we are not willing to put the resources and the leadership to keep State Street closed, and when I say the leadership making these difficult decisions, then we should just open State Street. Let's open State Street. If we're not going to be able to really, you know, budget in these resources for the downtown and make difficult decisions, then just open State Street. And let's go back to how things were. So we closed it to help businesses, and now there's all these issues. So if we're not willing to make these decisions and be very realistic, and that's where Rebecca comes in staff to say, hey, this is the budget, these are the laws, this is what you can do and you can't. So if we're not willing to make those decisions, might as well just open it.
Yeah. I wanted to sort of pivot a little bit and ask you about time on the city council. You were elected in 19, started serving in 20. You have, I think your term goes to, is it 26 or 25? You have a long
25, so 5 years.
Yeah, you had an extra year there. And let's be real, Alejandra, you are you know, a lot of people really like you, but because of your style of governing, sometimes you can offend people. You can sort of make people mad, and people sort of think, especially in the current culture, like, oh, you were endorsed by the Democratic Party. That means we own you. That means you need to do everything we tell you forever. And if you don't, then we're not going to support you, and we'll find someone else to run against you. And even if they don't do it overtly, they'll do it behind the scenes. Yeah. And so you don't play that game. You know, and I think they made a mistake when they said, let's get behind her, because they didn't like Jason, thinking you'd morph into that candidate. You are somebody who marches to the beat of your own drum. So can you do kind of a self-analysis? How do you feel you've done so far the first few years in terms of being effective, as well as, you know, making friends and making enemies on the council?
This experience of being a council member, I've grown definitely as a person, as an individual. Who you see on council is who I am. Yeah. And so if any of my friends or families are watching, they'll probably giggle, because I mean, what you see is what you get with me. I'm probably the most predictable council member because I don't run around in circles because I don't like to waste people's time because I don't like when people waste my time.
Yeah.
And so when people voted for me, I understand the level of responsibility that I have there. I was told by another politician that I don't play the game right.
Yeah.
And I told them, yeah, no, and I don't want to play the game. So I do things my way. I was raised in a very traditional Mexican family. My parents believed in the American dream. So I have certain values and priorities in my life that I'm not willing to negotiate with. And I'm not going to sit there on council and say things halfway, meaning truths that are halfway. I'm not going to sugarcoat things. And when we're there, we have to take decisions that are difficult. And I'm also not willing to make decisions out of the pressure from a party or somebody that endorsed me if I don't have the full information, or if I don't have a pulse of how the community feels. So for the whole example of the rent control, I know I rocked the boat, but I'm not going to make decisions based on political pressure because I'll repeat it over and over. Santa Barbara is my home. I have friends and family. I grew up here. I take the city very serious. So, for example, the whole situation with State Street and rent control, these are decisions that are going to be effective for a whole lifetime here. I mean, the decisions that I make now are going to affect my, nieces and nephews that are 3 and 5. And so I can't, because I want to move up in the political ladder, make these decisions because I'm a different breed of politicians. Remember, I came from the neighborhood because I wanted to create change. And the change that I wanted to see in my city, it was through the government as a council member. So when the Democratic Party said, we're going to endorse you, I was really excited and it was an honor. And then there's this political game, right? And not having that political background, I guess I didn't have a mentor that says, hey, you're going up against the political beast and there's this dance that you have to dance. Are you willing to do it? And it's not that I'm not willing, it's just this is home for me. And I'm not going to sell myself out to make new friends, if that makes sense. But I've learned a lot from my colleagues. I respect them. And I support them, but when I have to speak up, I have to speak up. And it's difficult. It's difficult being a young woman in a political city in Santa Barbara that normally is taken by retired people that can do this full time, and not having the support by those that I had in the beginning is challenging. And it's funny, Josh, because like you said, I hear about a lot of things people say from other, like I haven't had people come to me and say, we don't like you, or what you did was wrong and we're going to, endorse somebody else to run against you. I've heard that through other people. So true or not, I don't know. I'm still keeping my possibilities open to running. There's a lot of things going on right now, and you'll be the first one to know. Definitely. But it's been fun. It's been a growing experience. And at the end, what I really want to leave, when I leave my seat, I want just young children to know that if you really want to do something in this city, if you want to become somebody in leadership, you can. It just takes a lot of hard work. What I wanted to do is break that stereotype that you had to be male, white, with a political background, and that you came from money to be a city council member. No, this is your city. You work really hard and you can do it. And really, it was my campaign was it was my friends, some of my students that I worked with that came out to knock on doors. And really, I knocked on a lot of doors. Was I very knowledgeable politics? No, because it wasn't my background. Have I learned? Yes, I have. But I knew in order to get the votes was to work really hard. And I already had a reputation in the community of helping people. So there was a lot of people that went out to vote because they knew who I was and the dedication that I had in my community.
Yeah.
I will still continue having my friends after politics, right? But I do admire a lot those that move up the ladder in politics. It's a crazy place to be, and I just wanted to make a difference, and I wanted to open that door of opportunities for children like myself growing up here that came from immigrant parents that didn't have a lot of friends in politics, but that wanted to make a difference.
Yeah. I grew up here too, and one of my pet peeves is hearing people who moved here from elsewhere and got degrees from UCSB and start telling how Hispanic should be and how we should live and, try to advocate for us.
Yeah.
Like, well, we can advocate for ourselves as well. And sometimes we don't always agree with the textbook definition of advocacy. Sometimes you have to actually listen to the people who grew up in the community, even if they might have a different opinion that is not a textbook opinion. And you're definitely representative of that for sure. And it will be interesting to see when you run again, like who's there for you, or if you run again and who's not. And because as a reporter, obviously you hear like, oh, this and these rumors, but we'll see what actually happens when it comes time for that. I wanted to ask you about City Hall. It's no secret that you have missed a bunch of meetings. I don't know how many at the top of my head, and committee meetings, and council votes. And I wanted to just ask you about that. And so this is the first time we're talking about this. Why were you absent from City Hall for a few meetings in the fall and a lot of the other sort of like the budget hearing, subcommittee? Actually, I guess it was not even the fall, it was before that. It was even before when they were approving the budget. And then you did show up for the budget hearing, but a lot of those nitty gritty budget meetings I didn't see you at. What was going on, Alejandra, and why did you miss those meetings?
Well, some of the meetings that people say I missed, I was actually in Zoom, but you see that empty chair, so people started to freak out. But yes, You're right. I didn't miss a couple meetings. I have health issues, really, and I didn't feel comfortable back then opening up. Rebecca Bjork did know I had a doctor's note saying that I really had to take it easy, and then I went through a treatment for my medical issue that I had, and I really had to take care of myself. There was one council meeting, and I don't know if you saw it. It was when we voted for the Formation Review Board for the PD, that I started to get sick on council. They actually brought me a blanket. So it just came down to I needed to take care of myself because the body was keeping the score. And there was a lot with my other job at the school district, a lot of changes in leadership that was going on. And in order for me to get better and going through the treatment, I had to take care of myself, meaning I had to be absent because I wasn't, feeling right. And I have to thank Rebecca Bjork, and I did tell her, but there was one particular meeting where she actually, she was the one that said, you need to go home now. And I said, no, I can still do it. I can go into closed session. But thanks to her, if I wouldn't have left when she told me to leave, it wouldn't have been pretty. I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but the internal staff there at City Hall knew that I was going through a rough time, but I'm not exempt. I'm not exempt from getting sick. I'm not exempt from, I'm still human. You know, I live in this neighborhood and I suffer the same thing that my neighbors go through. You know, the gas prices go up, we suffer. Crime rates go up, we suffer too. There's a lot of people living in our neighborhoods and we can't find parking. It's just, I'm human. So it's been really tough. I had to learn that if I wanted to lead, I had to take a pause and take care of myself. And not a lot of people in leadership talk about that. It's just a go, 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 and making sure you're making those right moves to go up the ladder. And in reality, we're human. So when you get to a point where you really have to think about your health or move, you know, being a great leader, you can't lead if you're not healthy.
Mhm. Yeah. Well said. Did you get any pushback or feedback? I know there was a lot of whispering at City Hall and a lot of, oh, you need to look into this, you know, not just with me, you know, other media too, like, you know, she's never there, or this and that. Did people actually go up to you and say, how are you feeling? And, you know, is there a problem, or was there nobody ever said anything to your face about the absences?
There was less than 5 people that actually came up to me and asked me, like, how are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of people come and tell me things, Josh. And those that did, you could tell that genuinely care. I don't know if I am really reserved. You can ask my colleagues. Like, I don't talk about my personal life a lot, and maybe that's why a lot of people were hesitant. But like my really close friends will tell me, like, so and so, you know, was saying why you've missed meetings. But even my uncle Adrian, who's a police officer that sometimes will go to council meetings to because he's sent from the PD. I remember one day he texted me. He's like, "Where are you? Are you not a council member anymore?" And I'm like, "No, I'm sick," and he didn't even know.
Mm-hmm.
But again, they have been really supportive. It was tough, Josh. I didn't even want to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I didn't even want to admit what I was going through. So it was a struggle. But I was elected by the people and I have to be open. I have to be open and honest. And that's what it was. There's no excuses. Did people get upset? Probably. I mean, if my colleagues are there doing their duties and I'm not there, yeah, there was probably people questioning, but other than that, they've all been very supportive. I think that we've all gone through personal things during council with us or with family members. So we're all very respectful when it comes to, you know, health issues or family.
Yeah. You know, around I don't know if it was around that time or maybe before that time, and certainly different than the last time we talked. You have this new job at the Santa Barbara Unified School District. You had always been an employee there, but you have a new job. And so I'm wondering if you could talk about that and um, having a full-time job while trying to be a member of the city council. Obviously, there are conflicts there that could come up. You know, Kristen Sneddon, you know, she works full time, more control of her schedule. Eric works at Trader Joe's. I don't know about Oscar. He does his freelance work, I guess. But you know, a lot of people have to work. You know, and you obviously do too, because you already said, you know, you're young. You're one of the youngest ones on the council, maybe the youngest one, one of them for sure. What is your job at the school district? And, you know, what are you doing there? You've got like two irons in the fire, your public service on the council, and then you're also working with kids. So can you talk about that?
Yeah. So education has been my passion. That's where I started. I've been working for the school district 20 years now. So right out of high school, I started working at the school district. A year ago, I got promoted to be the lead family engagement at the school district. So for the first time ever, the school district now has family liaisons at each school site. And what family liaisons do is they're basically the middleman between the schools and the families. And they help families navigate through the education system, make them feel part of their school community. And the idea behind the family liaisons is that if we help families, the more successful their students will be. And so, especially after COVID, with the storms, a lot of families have struggled financially. Also, there's been a lot of mental health issues. So as family liaisons, if we can help a family, apply for Medi-Cal and get them the services, we can ensure the student to come every day or to at least, perform better academically. And so the family liaisons also work a lot with the Spanish-speaking community and with the newcomers. And the newcomers are basically families that have been in the States for within like 3 years. So they're new to this country and they're new to the education system. And in supporting the families, we support the child at the same time. And so this school district hasn't had liaisons at each school site. I got promoted to be lead because of my work that I was doing at Franklin Elementary School and bringing all the services there. There's other school districts that have these family liaisons, but we hadn't. So this is the first year that we have liaisons at each school site. And there's been a lot of change in leadership at the school district. So work has been a lot difficult than other years. And coming right out of the pandemic, there's a lot of new issues that we're dealing with. But I love working with students and family. That has always been my passion. So if I'm not in politics, I'm still going to be working with students and families and working with the community.
We hear so much about top-down ways to improve test scores and equity from the district administration, the board. It sounds like you're actually working with the parents and kids on the ground. What would you say from that work are the biggest challenges that families face in terms of being able to have their children enjoy school, test well, and integrate into the school district? What do you see firsthand in your interactions with families?
I love the work that I'm doing because the main reason that a lot of students are not successful is one, they don't feel part of their school community. And same with families, right? So if they don't feel part of their school community or that they are being seen or heard, they're not going to go out there to seek the resources or to seek help. So what the work that we do is we make those families comfortable enough. The families know where their students is struggling, but there's families that are working 2 jobs or don't know the language or come from a country where the teacher, if there was something going on with their student, the teacher would, let the parents know. And if you're new to this country and your language is not English, so if they're sending an email or a parent square, that form of communication might not get to a certain population of parents. And especially for parents that are coming from Latin America, it's all about trust. So they can take their student to school, but not necessarily trust the system. So they're not going to feel comfortable enough to say, I think my child needs glasses, or we're going through a situation at home. My husband got deported, or my wife has cancer. Last week, Franklin had a fundraiser for a mom there that is struggling with some major health issues, and the children go to Franklin. So they fundraised for the mom and to help that family. And that says a lot to the family specifically, but for the community at large, that school cares, and they gave a great message to their students. I talked to a couple students in the families, and they said, I know that if something happens to my mom or dad, one of the 6th graders told me, that my principal is going to be there for me. My teachers care. And the teachers were there serving pozole. The principal was there. So it's really important that families and students feel part of that school community.
Mm-hmm.
But we can think of different strategies as leaders, but if you are not working on a daily basis with students and families, there can be a huge disconnect.
Yeah.
Building the trust is very important. The customer service, the follow through, and I mean, there's a large need in Santa Barbara. A lot of people think, we're a rich community, but we're struggling in the education system.
Oh yeah, that's the big myth of Santa Barbara is there's a lot of people with a lot of wealth, and there's a lot of people who do not have a lot of wealth, and that's what people who don't live here don't understand until they come here, and even then, it takes them a few years to understand that, And I think what you said is important among the Latino community, Latinx community. Trust is so important. Presence, consistency, knowing that you're going to see the same faces there, knowing that someone's going to be there every day for you, no matter what your circumstances might be at home. That's really important. And it's obviously we know so much about Franklin and the great work that the principal is doing there. Does the school, each school have their own family child liaison? So every elementary school or
every elementary school has one, the junior highs and high schools.
And that's new?
That's new, yeah.
Oh, that's pretty impressive. And then you're Franklin, or what school are you?
No, I'm at the district, so I'm the lead.
You're the lead, you're in charge of them all. Okay, wow. So you're doing a lot of work, and you've got a legit full-time job and city council. Wow, that's impressive, right? And so how do you feel about that? You've been working with your community for a long time. Now it's more hours. Growing up here, how do you feel about you being able to help these kids? You're helping, little Alejandra, you're helping yourself now, just as an older version, how does that make you feel?
Oh, it feels amazing, Josh. I remember growing up here, struggling in school. In high school, I didn't have counselors that were Latinos that can, especially for first generation, it's hard. The parents don't want to let you leave their house. Are you going to college? We have a great college here. Why don't you just stay here at Santa Barbara City College? Or you don't leave until you get married, and especially for women.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a promise to myself that I wanted to help students like myself, that first generation, to pursue their dreams. And so, and I have a lot of my students have masters now, or they're married, either engineers, they're lawyers. Some of them went to become professional soccer players. One that I can think of right now is actually Jesse, who works for the Boys and Girls Club. He's, I think, assistant director. So I've definitely have helped a lot of people, and I can say that being a lead now and seeing these family liaisons at each school, it's great. I mean, things have changed. Families and children have more access to the resources now. We do live in a city where we are very blessed to have great organizations like the Education Foundation, great individuals that will donate money and their time. So there's a lot of resources here. The struggle is that how do we connect our families and students to those resources? And a lot of it is communication and culture. For the first generation students, families are really afraid to, let their child go to, a week camp during the summer, right? It's that trust factor. And so being a family liaison, you help those families get comfortable to allow themselves to accept the help and the resources that are out there. So it's great. I mean, I talk to my mom, and she'll smile every time. She's like, we didn't have that when you're in school. Maybe if we had these different opportunities that children have now, I could have better served you as a mom. But what I did learn about my mom and my dad was that they had to learn to be an advocate for their child. And it was difficult because my mom was shy. My parents are really reserved, and not knowing the language perfectly, it was a struggle. But luckily my mom had a lady she worked for cleaning her house in Montecito, and that lady really helped my mom a lot. She said, you need to go talk to the principal, and you need to make sure that Alejandra is reading every night. So my mom did have help. Parents find a way to help their child navigate the education system here. And so having the liaisons at each school site it's a big plus. And it's a plus for the school community as well.
Yeah. And sometimes just that little support, that little push, that little pat on the back from somebody in the community or friend, it makes the difference. It just gives somebody, that parent, the confidence to advocate for themselves as opposed to silently suffering because you don't want to rock the boat. And I think that's so important, is learning it's okay to rock the boat.
Yes.
In fact, it's the only way you're going to get people to pay attention to you is to rock the boat, because if you don't rock the boat, you'll just be marginalized as the nice family as opposed to the one who wants accountability from their leaders,
And it was actually from a parent group that is formed in the district, and it's a group of parents that have children that are English learners. And so these group of parents come together every month, and they talk about how certain pockets of money in the district should be spent to help reclassify students, and especially for the English language students at the district. And that group of parents went to the board, and they were the ones that advocated for a liaison at each school. So it actually came from the parents. And I have to share a story. One of my family liaisons that work with me, she's a liaison at Roosevelt. She was one of my students at San Marcos High School that I mentored. She's also first generation, went to college, and now she's working for the school district, helping other families. So I've definitely come full circle. Working at the district, I've been able to see the growth and just how much I've been able to help.
Right. Great. Hey, I want to wrap up soon. Just a couple questions, just to go back to the beginning, talking about your city of Santa Barbara stuff. We just came off the big storm, and there's lots of preparations and I think for the most part, the government did a really good job sort of preventing any disasters that they could. How would you assess the city of Santa Barbara's response to the storm, preparation, rescue efforts? We know that the parts of the west side flooded and people were trapped in their cars, that sort of thing. But what would you say on behalf of the city in terms of how well they were able to handle the situation?
I know there's been talk about, why did Montecito get evacuated, and, the east side and the west side got hit? Is it because these are the poor communities? What I do have to say is I really think the city did the best job they could. Obviously after situations like this, we always learn that the areas we could have done better. But I do understand my neighbors. I literally live less than a block away from a creek, and I was hoping to God that we didn't get that storm at 3 a.m. My house would have been flooded. It would have been really bad. I know some of my neighbors did, they lost water and power. Luckily, the city, fixed that already, but there was a lot of mud. There's a lot of streets around my house that got flooded. But there wasn't houses that were damaged. And yes, and the east side, it was mainly the cars, and there was some streets that, the water did go into their homes. But I think we're learning from this. I think they did a really good job. We didn't have, on Thursday, they did the report. We didn't have the type of damages we had at the last storm, but I could see why people are upset. Josh, the governor came. I didn't even know until I saw some Instagram posts from a couple of my colleagues. Mm-hmm. But if the governor came to Montecito and they're not mentioning the east side and west side, My neighbors are upset. You know, why didn't we get the attention that Montecito gets? Unfortunately, Montecito went through a horrible disaster. Lives, you know, children died, families were broken, and luckily we didn't have that here. But we could always do better. I am going to give a lot of props to the folks that work at public works for the city. I My parents come from Mexico, from a small town. I've traveled to other places. I can tell you that the next day after the storm, a lot of those streets were cleaned up. The city workers worked really hard, and we were understaffed because the 101 got closed. A lot of city workers also live out of town.
Mhm.
Law enforcement did their very best. They were short staffed again because a lot of people live out of town. So we were struggling with what we had. I mean, you had the city administrator not sleeping. You know, everybody was all hands on deck, and that we could have done better in different areas. Absolutely. But the city did their very best. I mean, those city workers were out there.
Yeah.
They have families. They probably, some of them live in these neighborhoods that got flooded.
Mhm.
Um, but they did good. I have to say. The storm that hit in I think it was 95, where things got pretty bad in the city.
Yeah.
The city improved, and they fixed the draining system, and a lot of places here in the city, and that's why we don't have that type of flood anymore that we had in the 90s.
Mhm.
But we're always learning.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's well put. Everybody can be an expert after the fact,
Mhm.
but you know, you learn from it and you get a little bit better for the next time. But it's interesting you didn't get notified about Newsom showing up, because I did see one of your colleagues there, so it makes me wonder how that happened when you did it. But that's another conversation. um, but yeah, you know, he should go to Montecito, right? That after the debris flow, that was so tragic, and there was some success stories with the storm, so it makes sense for him to go there. Obviously, North County, really bad shape with the storm too, you know, so lots of impact. But Santa Barbara seemed to do okay. Just to wrap up here, I wanted to just sort of ask you about, like, how you feeling? You know, you've been doing this for a long time now. You know, you've been, what is this, 23? You've been doing this for you know, since 20. So is that 3 years now? And you've got a 5-year term. Does it feel good to be kind of like, oh, I'm almost a veteran now. Like, I know how this works. I'm not the newbie that everybody's sort of like overly scrutinizing. I mean, how would you rate your performance so far at City Hall?
I feel really good. I'm very proud of myself. I've grown a lot. I'm not one to sit here and tell you how perfect my life is or how perfect I am. No, there's always room to grow. And again, I understand my position at the city, and I want people to be able to look at a person like me and say, hey, if she did it, I can do it too. And I am going to be talking about things that a lot of leaders don't want to talk about, because a lot of people think that we're so perfect, or they must have it so easy. You know, things were handed to them. No, I worked really hard.
Mhm.
There's many times where I was terrified. I had to call, you know, some of my friends before meetings and like, okay, can I run the lines with you one more time? Like I'm really nervous. I, it's been a lot of growth. And because I've grown, I know I'm a better version of myself. And I'm not going to make everybody happy. And my my grandfather used to say, and I'll say it in Spanish, cuando vas avanzando, los perros ladran. And so basically it says that when you are moving forward, you're going to hear the dogs barking, but just keep on moving forward. So if you're making noise and you're making dogs bark, that means you're doing something good.
Mhm.
And my absence, when I'm not there, I have people texting me, you know, city staff, some of my colleagues, like, hey, are you okay? You know, your presence was missed. So I think that's really important.
Yeah.
You want to mark or see how you're doing in leadership. In your absence, if you are missed, that's when you know you're doing a good job.
Mhm.
And I'm I feel a lot better health-wise. I know that I'm really excited to be in these meetings that I was in last year. I mean, you know, Thursday was a perfect example. I'm back. My presence was shown.
Right.
So if you're a leader and when you're not there, things are running smoothly and people don't really miss you, then I don't think you're doing your job right. But if you're a leader and people are asking where is she, then you know you've done something right.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are a lot of people after Thursday's meeting thinking, why can't she miss some more meetings again?
Of course.
So yeah, definitely. I captured a few of your quotes in my story, but anyone who's into city government should definitely watch that meeting. But thanks a lot, Councilmember Gutierrez. I appreciate your time and your candid comments and honesty and just telling it like it is. So thank you so much, and have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Such an honor to be here.
Thank you.